Geno Smith didn't need a long statement, a press conference, or a detailed explanation after the Las Vegas Raiders decided to release him. Instead, the veteran quarterback delivered a short but powerful message on social media, just 7 words that immediately captured attention across the NFL world. Open quote, "God is the greatest. Thank you, Lord." Close quote. It was simple, defiant, and reflective of a quarterback whose career has already experienced more twists and turns than most players in the league. To understand why that message resonated with fans and analysts, it helps to look at the context surrounding Smith's release, the direction of the Raiders franchise, and the unique path that has defined Smith's career. Raiders enter a major transition. The Raiders' decision to release Smith is part of a much larger transformation happening inside the organization. When the franchise hired Super Bowl-winning head coach Pete Carroll in January 2025, the move was widely seen as an attempt to bring stability to a team that had struggled with consistency for decades. Carroll's reputation as a culture builder made him an appealing choice. He had previously turned the Seattle Seahawks into one of the most dominant teams of the early 2010s and guided them to a championship in Super Bowl XL8. Alongside that coaching hire, the Raiders also acquired Geno Smith, a quarterback Carroll knew well from their years together in Seattle. The idea behind those moves seemed clear. Las Vegas wanted leadership, experience, and a steady hand at the most important positions in the organization. Unfortunately, things didn't work out the way the franchise hoped. A season that fell apart. The Raiders' 2025 season quickly spiraled into disappointment. Smith's performance wasn't disastrous, but it also didn't resemble the efficient quarterback who had revitalized his career with the Seahawks just a few seasons earlier. He finished the year with respectable numbers in terms of passing yards and touchdowns, but the offense struggled with turnovers and inconsistency throughout the season. More importantly, the team simply didn't win games. The Raiders finished the year with a 3-14 record, the worst in the entire NFL. For a franchise that entered the season hoping to compete for a playoff spot, that result forced serious internal reflection. When teams finish with league's worst record, changes almost always follow. And in Las Vegas, those changes came quickly. Coaching change signals new direction. One of the most surprising decisions came when the Raiders moved on from Carroll after just one season. Replacing him is former Seahawks offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, who at 39 years old represents a much younger and more modern coaching approach. Kubiak had recently helped guide Seattle to another Super Bowl victory, and his offensive system is widely viewed as one of the more creative schemes in the league. The decision to hire him signaled that the Raiders are starting a completely new chapter. Young head coach, new quarterback likely coming, and potentially major roster changes on both sides of the ball. The quarterback situation. Perhaps the biggest reason the Raiders were comfortable moving on from Smith is their position in the upcoming draft. With the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, Las Vegas is widely expected to select Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza enters the league with enormous hype. He won the Heisman Trophy and led Indiana to its first national championship in school history, making him one of the most decorated quarterback prospects in recent years. For a franchise in need of a long-term answer at quarterback, that opportunity is difficult to pass up. Drafting Mendoza would signal that the Raiders are committing to a full rebuild centered around a young star. Could Smith have stayed as a mentor? Some observers wondered whether Smith could remain with the team as a mentor for Mendoza during his rookie season. There is logic to that idea. Veteran quarterbacks often help young passers adjust to the speed and complexity of the NFL, but the financial reality made that scenario difficult. Smith's contract carried a significant salary cap hit, and the Raiders clearly decided that those resources would be better used elsewhere during the rebuild. By releasing Smith, the team frees up cap space while clearing the path for a new quarterback era. Another possible major move. Smith might not be the only major departure this offseason. There is also speculation that star defensive end Maxx Crosby could be traded as part of the team's rebuilding process. Crosby has been one of the Raiders' best players for several seasons, and is widely considered one of the top edge rushers in football. If the team decides to move him for draft picks, it would signal an even deeper commitment to a long-term rebuild. For Raiders fans, that possibility is both exciting and unsettling. Rebuilds offer hope for the future, but they also require patience. Geno Smith's perspective. While the franchise moves in a new direction, Smith's reaction suggests he isn't dwelling on the situation. His 7-word message, "God is the greatest, thank you, Lord," reflects gratitude rather than frustration. That mindset isn't surprising when you consider the ups and downs of his career. Few quarterbacks in the league have experienced a journey quite like Smith's. A career full of highs and lows. Smith originally entered the NFL when the New York Jets selected him in the second round of the 2013 NFL Draft. Early expectations were high. Many believed he could become the long-term starter in New York. But his first few seasons were rocky, and he eventually lost his starting job. For several years afterward, Smith became a journeyman quarterback, serving as a backup with multiple teams. At one point, his career seemed destined to remain in that role permanently. The Seattle comeback. Everything changed when Smith joined the Seahawks. After spending time as a backup behind Russell Wilson, Smith finally received another chance to start when Wilson was traded. What happened next shocked the entire NFL. Smith delivered one of the most unexpected breakout seasons in recent memory, earning Pro Bowl honors in both 2022 and 2023 while leading Seattle to playoff contention. His comeback story became one of the most inspiring narratives in the league. The phrase he famously used during that season, "They wrote me off, but I ain't right back though," became a symbol of perseverance. Why his message matters. That history makes Smith's recent social media post even more meaningful. For a player who has already fought through career setbacks and public criticism, another release doesn't carry the same weight it might for others. Smith has already proven he can bounce back, and at 35 years old, he still has the experience and ability to help another team. What happens next? The next chapter of Smith's career could take several different paths. Some teams may view him as a reliable veteran backup. Others might see him as a bridge starter while developing a younger quarterback. Quarterback depth is always valuable in the NFL, and Smith's experience makes him an attractive option for multiple franchises. Teams like the Minnesota Vikings, Pittsburgh Steelers, or New York Jets could potentially explore bringing him in, depending on their own quarterback situations. A career defined by resilience. In many ways, Smith's short message captured the essence of his career: gratitude, resilience, and confidence that another opportunity will come. The Raiders may be turning the page and preparing to build around a new quarterback, but Geno Smith's story in the NFL is far from finished. If his career has taught fans anything, it's that writing him off has rarely been the right move. The trade sending Maxx Crosby from the Las Vegas Raiders to the Baltimore Ravens didn't just reshape two franchises, it also brought a wave of relief to some of the Raiders' biggest divisional rivals. One of the most vocal reactions came from Sean Payton, the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Payton didn't try to hide how happy he was to see Crosby finally leave the AFC West after years of terrorizing quarterbacks and offensive lines inside the division. In fact, his reaction was so enthusiastic that he jokingly offered to pay for Crosby's flight out of the division. The humorous moment became public after NFL insider Jay Glazer shared a text message from Payton on social media. According to Glazer, Payton was so fired up that the Raiders traded Crosby that he actually texted the star pass rusher directly. His message included a playful offer. Payton joked that he would be happy to pay for a private one-way plane ticket to Baltimore, simply because it meant Crosby would no longer be playing in Denver's division. But while the comment was funny, it wasn't disrespectful. Payton also made sure to praise Crosby, telling him that he has always been an inspiration to watch and compete against. The Broncos coach has long admired Crosby's relentless motor and work ethic. Even while celebrating the trade, Payton acknowledged the type of player Crosby has been throughout his career. For years, opposing coaches have described Crosby as one of the most relentless defenders in football, a player who never seems to slow down, no matter the score or the situation. And that relentless style is exactly why AFC West teams were more than happy to see him move to another conference. Years of dominance in the AFC West. Since entering the NFL, Crosby has been a constant problem for divisional rivals. Drafted by the Raiders in 2019, he quickly established himself as one of the league's most disruptive edge rushers. His ability to pressure quarterbacks, chase down running backs, and dominate offensive tackles made him the centerpiece of the Raiders' defense. Over the years, Crosby built a reputation for doing three things exceptionally well: generating consistent quarterback pressure, recording tackles for loss in the backfield, playing with relentless energy from the first snap to the last. His high motor became one of his defining traits. Even late in games, when many pass rushers began to slow down, Crosby often looked like he was still playing his first series. For opposing coaches like Payton, preparing for Crosby meant designing entire game plans around limiting his impact. That's why his departure from the AFC West feels like such a relief. A blockbuster trade. The trade itself was one of the biggest moves of the NFL offseason. The Raiders agreed to send Crosby to the Ravens in exchange for the number 14 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, another first-round pick in the 2027 Draft. That's a massive return for a defensive player, and it highlights just how valuable Crosby is around the league. While the deal technically becomes official when the new league year begins, both franchises have already made their intentions clear. Baltimore wants to win now. Las Vegas is preparing for the future. Why the Ravens made the move. For the Ravens, acquiring Crosby solves one of the team's biggest problems from last season. Despite having a talented defense overall, Baltimore struggled to consistently pressure opposing quarterbacks. The Ravens finished near the bottom of the league in sacks, which made life more difficult for their secondary. Adding Crosby immediately changes that dynamic. He becomes the centerpiece of Baltimore's pass rush and gives the defense a player capable of dominating one-on-one matchups. For a team built around two-time MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson, strengthening the defense is critical. Jackson gives the Ravens explosive offensive potential every week. But championship teams often need elite defenders who can close out games, and Crosby fits that role perfectly. If he performs the way he has throughout his career, Baltimore's defense could become one of the most dangerous units in the NFL. A new era in Las Vegas. While the Ravens are pushing toward contention, the Raiders appear to be entering a rebuilding phase. Trading Crosby is perhaps the clearest signal yet that the franchise is preparing for a major reset. Crosby had been the emotional leader of the defense for several seasons. His production, energy, and leadership made him one of the most respected players in the locker room. But rebuilding teams often face difficult choices. By trading Crosby now, the Raiders secured multiple first-round picks that can help reshape the roster over the next several years. Those picks could be used to draft young defensive players or even traded again to acquire more assets. The strategy suggests the organization is prioritizing long-term success rather than short-term competitiveness. Crosby's legacy in Las Vegas. Before the trade, Crosby had become one of the most recognizable players in Raiders history over the past decade. After being selected in the fourth round of the 2019 NFL Draft, he quickly exceeded expectations. Few mid-round picks develop into elite defenders the way Crosby did. Over time, he built a resume that includes multiple Pro Bowl selections, consistently high sack totals, some of the highest pressure rates among edge rushers. More importantly, he became known for his toughness and relentless playing style. Even when the Raiders struggled as a team, Crosby rarely seemed to slow down. That attitude made him a fan favorite in Las Vegas. Why Payton's joke matters. Sean Payton's reaction might have been humorous, but it also revealed something important. Coaches around the NFL genuinely respect Crosby's ability. When an opposing head coach celebrates a player leaving the division, it usually means that player has been causing serious problems. Crosby's impact forced teams to constantly adjust their offensive strategies. Offensive tackles needed extra help. Running backs had to stay in for pass protection. Quarterbacks had to release the ball quickly. All of those adjustments come from the threat of one defender. That's the kind of influence Crosby brings to a defense. Crosby. The move to Baltimore represents a new challenge. The Ravens expect him to elevate their defense and help push the team toward a Super Bowl run. For the Raiders, the trade represents the beginning of a new chapter, one focused on building a younger roster through the draft. And for the rest of the AFC West, including Sean Payton and the Broncos, it means one thing. They no longer have to face Maxx Crosby twice a year. Given how disruptive he's been throughout his career, that alone might be worth the price of a private plane ticket to Baltimore. The trade sending Maxx Crosby from the Las Vegas Raiders to the Baltimore Ravens didn't just reshape two franchises, it also brought a wave of relief to some of the Raiders' biggest divisional rivals. One of the most vocal reactions came from Sean Payton, the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Payton didn't try to hide how happy he was to see Crosby finally leave the AFC West after years of terrorizing quarterbacks and offensive lines inside the division. In fact, his reaction was so enthusiastic that he jokingly offered to pay for Crosby's flight out of the division. The humorous moment became public after NFL insider Jay Glazer shared a text message from Payton on social media. According to Glazer, Payton was so fired up that the Raiders traded Crosby that he actually texted the star pass rusher directly. His message included a playful offer. Payton joked that he would be happy to pay for a private one-way plane ticket to Baltimore, simply because it meant Crosby would no longer be playing in Denver's division. But while the comment was funny, it wasn't disrespectful. Payton also made sure to praise Crosby, telling him that he has always been an inspiration to watch and compete against. The Broncos coach has long admired Crosby's relentless motor and work ethic. Even while celebrating the trade, Payton acknowledged the type of player Crosby has been throughout his career. For years, opposing coaches have described Crosby as one of the most relentless defenders in football, a player who never seems to slow down, no matter the score or the situation. And that relentless style is exactly why AFC West teams were more than happy to see him move to another conference. Years of dominance in the AFC West. Since entering the NFL, Crosby has been a constant problem for divisional rivals. Drafted by the Raiders in 2019, he quickly established himself as one of the league's most disruptive edge rushers. His ability to pressure quarterbacks, chase down running backs, and dominate offensive tackles made him the centerpiece of the Raiders' defense. Over the years, Crosby built a reputation. Geno Smith may soon be looking for a new team after reports surfaced that the Las Vegas Raiders plan to release him at the start of the new league year. But before the veteran quarterback even hit the free agent market, he found himself in a completely different kind of battle. A social media back and forth with the fast food giant Wendy's. What started as a playful joke from a brand known for roasting celebrities online quickly turned into one of the funniest and most talked about exchanges of the NFL offseason. And in the eyes of many fans, Smith didn't just respond, he completely flipped the script. To understand why this moment went viral, it helps to look at the context surrounding Smith's situation, the Raiders' quarterback plans, and the strange intersection of sports, marketing, and social media that created this unexpected moment. The news that started it all. The entire exchange began shortly after reports from Adam Schefter revealed that the Raiders were expected to move on from Smith when the new NFL year begins. Smith's release had been widely anticipated across the league. Las Vegas finished the season with a disappointing 3-14 record, the worst mark in the NFL, which secured the team the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming draft. With that position, the Raiders are widely expected to select Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, who led Indiana to its first national championship. For a rebuilding franchise, drafting a young quarterback with elite potential makes sense. And once that became the expected direction for the organization, Smith's role with the team became difficult to justify. His season statistics tell the story. Smith threw for 3,025 yards and 19 touchdowns, but he also led the league with 17 interceptions, which proved costly for an already struggling roster. The Raiders had hoped Smith would provide stability at quarterback while the franchise rebuilt the rest of the team. Instead, the season quickly spiraled into one of the worst campaigns in recent team history. Once the team secured the first pick in the draft, the writing was essentially on the wall. Smith's time in Las Vegas was coming to an end. Wendy's enters the conversation. Shortly after the release news began circulating, Wendy's official social media account decided to have a little fun with the situation. The fast food chain posted a message directly tagging Smith, offering him a job if free agency didn't go well. The post read, open quote, "In case things don't work out in free agency, we're looking for a chief tasting officer." Close quote. For many companies, that kind of comment might have gone unnoticed, but Wendy's has built an entire online brand around sharp, sarcastic humor. Over the past decade, the company has become famous for roasting competitors, celebrities, and sometimes even its own customers. Their social media strategy thrives on attention, and tagging a recently released NFL quarterback was clearly designed to generate engagement. At first glance, the joke seemed harmless, just another playful jab from a brand known for internet humor, but Smith clearly wasn't going to let it slide without responding. Geno Smith fires back. Smith's response arrived quickly, and it was surprisingly sharp. He wrote, open quote, "Get ya cheese up first," close quote. The phrase itself is slang, essentially telling someone to focus on making money before talking. But Smith didn't stop there. Along with the message, he posted a screenshot of a business article reporting that Wendy's sales had dropped significantly during the previous quarter. The article referenced an 11% decline in sales, which forced the company to consider closing 300 to 350 locations across the United States. In one move, Smith had turned the joke completely around. Instead of being the target of the roast, he pointed the spotlight back at Wendy's financial struggles. The internet loved it. Within minutes, fans began sharing the post across social media platforms, praising Smith for delivering a perfectly timed comeback. Smith doubles down. Most athletes might have left things there, but Smith wasn't finished. He followed up with another post that took the jab even further. Open quote, "Out here selling poison, trying to get jokes off on Twitter. Society in shambles." Close quote. The message suggested that fast food companies shouldn't be mocking athletes while selling unhealthy food. It was blunt, sarcastic, and exactly the kind of comment that spreads quickly online. Then came the final punchline. When one fan joked that there was beef between Smith and Wendy's, the quarterback responded with another memorable line. Open quote, "This beef is about as real as the beef in those patties they're selling." Close quote. At that point, the internet collectively declared the winner. And it wasn't the marketing team. Why the moment went viral. This exchange quickly became one of the most widely shared sports stories of the week, but the reason it resonated goes deeper than just a funny insult. The moment highlighted a growing trend in sports culture. Athletes are increasingly willing to control their own narrative on social media. In previous eras, athletes rarely responded directly to jokes, criticism, or media commentary. Their public statements were filtered through interviews, press conferences, and team communications. Today, things are different. Players have direct access to millions of followers, and when something catches their attention, they can respond instantly. Smith's comeback worked so well because it flipped the power dynamic. Instead of a brand roasting an athlete for attention, the athlete roasted the brand right back, and arguably did it better. The financial reality. Another reason the joke didn't land particularly well is that Smith's financial situation is dramatically different from the one implied in the tweet. Even if he signs a minimum veteran contract, Smith will likely earn at least $1.3 million next season. That's more than 10 times the salary reportedly associated with Wendy's chief tasting officer promotional role. The job itself is mostly symbolic, a marketing gimmick that involves taste testing menu items for promotional campaigns. But when directed at a professional athlete who has earned tens of millions of dollars during his career, the joke felt slightly off target. Smith knew that. And his response reflected it. Geno Smith's unusual NFL journey. The moment also reminded fans of just how unusual Smith's career has been. He originally entered the league when the New York Jets selected him in the second round of the 2013 NFL Draft. At the time, many analysts believed he could become the franchise quarterback for New York, but his early years in the league were rocky. After two inconsistent seasons as a starter, Smith gradually drifted into a backup role and spent several years moving between teams. At one point, it looked like his opportunity to start in the NFL might never return. Then came his unexpected career revival. While playing for the Seattle Seahawks, Smith finally received another opportunity when the team traded Russell Wilson. What happened next surprised the entire league. Smith delivered one of the best comeback seasons in recent memory, earning Pro Bowl selections in 2022 and 2023 while reestablishing himself as a legitimate starting quarterback. For a player who had spent years waiting for another chance, it was a remarkable turnaround. Why the Raiders' experiment failed. When the Raiders acquired Smith, the expectation was that he could provide stability while the team rebuilt. Unfortunately, the situation in Las Vegas proved far more complicated. The roster struggled across multiple positions, the defense had major issues, and the offense lacked consistency. Smith's interceptions became a major storyline, but the reality is that the team's problems extended well beyond the quarterback position. Still, the result was clear. A 3-14 record forced the organization to reconsider its entire direction, and that inevitably included the quarterback position. What comes next for Smith? Despite the disappointing season, Smith is unlikely to remain unemployed for long. Veteran quarterbacks with starting experience are always valuable in the NFL. Several teams have already been mentioned as potential destinations, including Minnesota Vikings, Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Jets. Each of those teams could benefit from a steady veteran presence at quarterback. Even if Smith isn't viewed as a long-term franchise quarterback anymore, his experience and leadership still make him a valuable option. He could serve as a bridge starter, a high-quality backup, or even a mentor for a young quarterback. And after the resilience he showed earlier in his career, few people would be surprised if he finds success again. One thing is clear. Whether Smith ends up starting for another team or serving in a supporting role, one thing became clear during this viral moment. The veteran quarterback still has excellent timing. On the field, that timing once helped him complete over 70% of his passes during his breakout season with Seattle. And off the field, it helped him deliver one of the most memorable comebacks of the NFL offseason. Wendy's may have tried to roast him, but this time, Geno Smith fired back and hit his target perfectly. The ripple effects from the blockbuster trade involving Maxx Crosby are already spreading across the NFL. After the Baltimore Ravens sent 2 first-round picks to the Las Vegas Raiders for the star pass rusher, front offices around the league are rethinking what elite defensive players might now be worth on the trade market. And one team that could take advantage of this shifting landscape is the Seattle Seahawks. Some analysts believe Seattle could attempt an even more shocking move, trading for Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns. If that deal were to happen, it completely transform the Seahawks defense and potentially launch the franchise into dynasty territory. Shash, why Myles Garrett is the ultimate prize. Garrett isn't just another star defender. He's widely considered one of the most dominant pass rushers of his generation and has consistently ranked among the league's most disruptive defensive players. The former number 1 overall pick has built a resume that includes multiple Pro Bowl appearances, several All-Pro selections, an NFL Defensive Player of the Year title. Garrett's ability to destroy offensive game plans is almost unmatched. His combination of power, speed, and technique allows him to overwhelm offensive tackles and generate constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Adding a player like that doesn't just improve a defense, it can redefine it. Why Seattle could actually afford it. Unlike many teams that would struggle to absorb Garrett's massive contract, Seattle has the financial flexibility to make a bold move. The Seahawks currently have around $58 million in available salary cap space, one of the largest amounts in the league. That financial cushion gives the team the ability to absorb Garrett's contract or restructure it as part of a trade. NFL analyst Gary Davenport believes Seattle is one of the few teams capable of pulling off a deal of this magnitude. The Seahawks are also expected to be picking near the end of the first round in upcoming drafts due to their recent success. That makes trading future first-round selections less painful compared to rebuilding teams that rely heavily on early draft picks. The proposed trade package. According to projections, a deal for Garrett might require a massive return. One potential trade scenario could include Seattle's 2026 first-round pick, Seattle's 2027 first-round pick, a third-round pick in 2026. That type of package would place the trade among the most expensive defensive player acquisitions in NFL history. But when a generational talent becomes available, teams sometimes decide the price is worth it, building a defensive nightmare. The real reason analysts are excited about this hypothetical move is what it would do to Seattle's defense. Even without Garrett, the Seahawks already field one of the strongest defensive units in the league. Adding Garrett to that group would turn a great defense into something potentially historic. He would likely line up alongside veteran defensive lineman Leonard Williams, forming one of the most dangerous pass rushing duos in football. Imagine offensive lines trying to block both players at the same time. If a team double teams Garrett, Williams could dominate one-on-one matchups. If they shift protection toward Williams, Garrett could destroy the edge. Either way, opposing quarterbacks would face constant pressure. The dark side defense. Some analysts have jokingly referred to a Garrett-led Seahawks defense as a dark side unit, a group so intimidating that it would strike fear across the league. The nickname reflects how dominant Seattle's defense could become if Garrett joined the roster. Great defenses don't just stop offenses. They create chaos. They force turnovers. They change the way opponents prepare for games. Garrett has that kind of impact. When he's on the field, offensive coordinators must redesign entire game plans to account for him. The dynasty potential. The most intriguing part of this scenario is the long-term potential it could create for Seattle. If the Seahawks added Garrett while maintaining their current core roster, they could build the type of sustained dominance rarely seen in modern professional sports. Analysts have compared the potential impact of such a move to legendary dynasties like the Golden State Warriors during their 2010s championship run, the New England Patriots dynasty of the early 2000s, the New York Yankees teams that dominated baseball in the late 1990s. Those organizations shared one common trait. They combined elite star power with strong roster depth. Adding Garrett could push Seattle into that category. Another key factor is that the Seahawks might still have enough financial flexibility to keep their offensive core together even after acquiring Garrett. One of the team's most important pending decisions involves Kenneth Walker III, who recently boosted his value dramatically after winning Super Bowl MVP. Walker is expected to command a significant contract in free agency, but if Seattle restructures Garrett's deal properly, the team could potentially afford both players. That would allow the Seahawks to maintain a powerful offense while building an elite defense at the same time. Few teams in the NFL manage to achieve that balance. Would the Browns actually trade Garrett? Of course, the biggest obstacle in this entire scenario is convincing Cleveland to part with its franchise player. Garrett has been the face of the Browns' defense for years and remains one of the most valuable players on the roster. Trading him would signal a major shift in direction for the franchise. However, the massive return of multiple first-round picks could tempt Cleveland if the organization decides to rebuild. The Crosby trade demonstrated that teams are willing to pay enormous prices for elite pass rushers. If the Browns believe they can accelerate a rebuild with draft capital, they might consider offers. John Schneider's opportunity. If a trade becomes possible, the decision would fall to Seahawks general manager John Schneider. Schneider has a reputation for aggressive roster building when the right opportunity arises. Throughout his tenure, he has shown a willingness to make bold moves that push the team closer to championship contention. Acquiring Garrett would be the boldest move of his career, but it could also be the one that defines the next era of Seahawks football. A move that could reshape the NFL. In today's NFL, building a dynasty is incredibly difficult. Salary cap restrictions and roster turnover make sustained success rare, but occasionally a single move shifts the balance of power. If Seattle were able to land Myles Garrett, it could be exactly that type of moment. A dominant defense paired with a championship-level offense would make the Seahawks one of the most feared teams in the league for years. And if they managed to win another Super Bowl after making such a move, The conversation wouldn't just be about a championship, it would be about the beginning of a dynasty. The ripple effects from the blockbuster trade involving Maxx Crosby are already spreading across the NFL. After the Baltimore Ravens sent 2 first-round picks to the Las Vegas Raiders for the star pass rusher, front offices around the league are rethinking what elite defensive players might now be worth on the trade market. And one team that could take advantage of this shifting landscape is the Seattle Seahawks. Some analysts believe Seattle could attempt an even more shocking move, trading for Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns. If that deal were to happen, it completely transform the Seahawks defense and potentially launch the franchise into dynasty territory. Shash, why Myles Garrett is the ultimate prize. Garrett isn't just another star defender. He's widely considered one of the most dominant pass rushers of his generation and has consistently ranked among the league's most disruptive defensive players. The former number 1 overall pick has built a resume that includes multiple Pro Bowl appearances, several All-Pro selections, an NFL Defensive Player of the Year title. Garrett's ability to destroy offensive game plans is almost unmatched. His combination of power, speed, and technique allows him to overwhelm offensive tackles and generate constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Adding a player like that doesn't just improve a defense, it can redefine it. Why Seattle could actually afford it. Unlike many teams that would struggle to absorb Garrett's massive contract, Seattle has the financial flexibility to make a bold move. The Seahawks currently have around $58 million in available salary cap space, one of the largest amounts in the league. That financial cushion gives the team the ability to absorb Garrett's contract or restructure it as part of a trade. NFL analyst Gary Davenport believes Seattle is one of the few teams capable of pulling off a deal of this. The future of Kenneth Walker III with the Seattle Seahawks is suddenly one of the most intriguing storylines heading into NFL free agency. After playing a key role in Seattle's championship run, Walker is entering the open market with his value at an all-time high, and there is growing speculation that another contender could lure him away. One team being strongly linked to the star running back is the Denver Broncos, a rising AFC powerhouse that came within 1 game of reaching the Super Bowl last season. According to projections from analyst Gary Davenport, Denver could offer Walker a 3-year contract worth roughly $30.3 million, which would pay him just over $10 million per season. For a running back, that type of deal signals that a team views him as a major offensive weapon rather than just another piece in a rotation. Kenneth Walker's value has never been higher. Walker entered the league when Seattle selected him in the 2nd round of the 2022 NFL Draft after a dominant college career at Michigan State. From the moment he arrived in Seattle, he proved he could produce at the professional level. He rushed for over 1,000 yards as a rookie, immediately establishing himself as one of the most explosive young running backs in the league. A few seasons later, he repeated that milestone during the 2025 campaign, again surpassing the 1,000-yard mark. But what truly elevated his reputation came during Seattle's playoff run. Walker delivered a series of impressive performances in the postseason, culminating in a legendary outing in the championship game. Facing the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl, Walker rushed for 135 yards, consistently breaking tackles and controlling the pace of the game. That performance earned him Super Bowl MVP honors, a rare achievement for a running back in the modern NFL. Winning that award not only cemented Walker's place in Seahawks history, it dramatically increased his market value. Why the Seahawks might lose him. Despite Walker's importance to the team, there are legitimate reasons the Seahawks may hesitate to match a big free agent offer. Running backs have become one of the most complicated positions in the NFL from a financial perspective. Teams increasingly rely on committees rather than paying large contracts to a single runner. Seattle also has roster considerations to manage. The team expects the eventual return of Zach Charbonnet, who suffered a torn ACL and is working his way back for the 2026 season. Charbonnet's presence means the Seahawks could rebuild their backfield using multiple players rather than committing major money to one star. If Walker's market value rises above $10 million per year, The Seahawks front office may decide that their resources are better spent strengthening other positions. That reality opens the door for teams like Denver to make an aggressive move. Why the Broncos make sense. For the Broncos, adding Walker could solve one of the biggest weaknesses that prevented them from reaching the Super Bowl last season. Denver had an explosive passing game led by young quarterback Bo Nix, but the team struggled to maintain balance on offense after injuries hit the backfield. Veteran running back J.K. Dobbins was expected to anchor the ground game, but injuries limited his availability and effectiveness. Meanwhile, second-year back R.J. Harvey averaged only 3.7 yards per carry, which made it difficult for Denver to consistently control games on the ground. For a team that plays in the competitive AFC, that lack of a reliable rushing attack became a major problem, and that's where Walker fits perfectly. Sean Payton's offensive philosophy. Broncos head coach Sean Payton has long believed in building offenses that can run the ball effectively. Throughout his career, Payton has consistently emphasized balance between the passing and rushing attacks. When his teams are at their best, the running game forces defenses to respect play-action passes and creates easier opportunities for quarterbacks. Adding Walker would give Payton exactly the kind of explosive runner he loves. Walker's ability to break long runs and turn small gaps into big plays could transform Denver's offensive identity. Instead of relying heavily on Nix to carry the offense, the Broncos could spread the workload more evenly. That kind of balance is often critical for teams hoping to make deep playoff runs. The fit with Bo Nix. From a strategic standpoint, Walker's arrival could also accelerate the development of Bo Nix. Young quarterbacks benefit tremendously from strong running games. When defenses must respect the threat of the run, they cannot commit as many defenders to coverage. That creates easier passing windows and reduces the pressure on the quarterback. Walker's presence would likely force opposing defenses to stack the box more frequently, opening up opportunities for Denver's passing attack. For Nix, that could mean more play-action opportunities, simpler defensive reads, less pressure to throw in obvious passing situations. In other words, Walker could make the Broncos' offense far more unpredictable. Is there any risk? Even though Walker's talent is obvious, some analysts believe signing him to a major contract would carry certain risks. The biggest concern is workload. Walker has been extremely productive, but he has never truly served as a full-time workhorse back for an entire season. Teams must always consider durability when investing significant money in a running back. Running the ball in the NFL is physically demanding, and even elite players can wear down over time. However, Denver might view that concern differently. Rather than asking Walker to handle 25 carries per game, the Broncos could use him as the centerpiece of a balanced rotation that keeps him fresh. That strategy has become increasingly common across the league. Seattle's alternative plan. If the Seahawks ultimately lose Walker, they still have several possible options to rebuild their running back group. Several experienced runners could be available in free agency, including Tyler Allgeier, Rashad White, Brian Robinson Jr. None of those players carry the same star power as Walker, but they could help form a committee approach alongside Charbonnet once he returns. That strategy might allow Seattle to maintain a productive running game without committing large financial resources to one player. What happens next? For now, Walker's future remains uncertain. The Seahawks would clearly prefer to keep the Super Bowl MVP who helped deliver a championship to the city. But the realities of the salary cap and the running back market could make that difficult. Meanwhile, the Broncos are positioned as one of the most logical destinations if Walker leaves. Denver has the salary cap space, a head coach who values the running game, a roster close to championship contention. Those factors make the Broncos one of the most dangerous potential suitors in free agency. A decision that could shape the season. If Walker ultimately signs with Denver, it could reshape the balance of power in the AFC. The Broncos already have a talented roster and a rising quarterback. Adding a dynamic running back who just won Super Bowl MVP would elevate their offense to another level. For the Seahawks, losing Walker would be painful, but it might also represent the next stage of roster evolution. Either way, The decision surrounding Kenneth Walker III is shaping up to be one of the most fascinating storylines of the NFL offseason. The future of Kenneth Walker III with the Seattle Seahawks is suddenly one of the most intriguing storylines heading into NFL free agency. After playing a key role in Seattle's championship run, Walker is entering the open market with his value at an all-time high, and there is growing speculation that another contender could lure him away. One team being strongly linked to the star running back is the Denver Broncos, a rising AFC powerhouse that came within one game of reaching the Super Bowl last season. According to projections from analyst Gary Davenport, Denver could offer Walker a 3-year contract worth roughly $30.3 million, which would pay him just over $10 million per season. For a running back, that type of deal signals that a team views him as a major offensive weapon rather than just another piece in a rotation. Kenneth Walker's value has never been higher. Walker entered the league when Seattle selected him in the second round of the 20